welcome to the show. This is Deep Feels as always. I am your host, Liam Garrow, welcoming you to the newest installment in what is ostensibly a real, I want to say, next step forward in the very exciting end of days. This is the stage of our lives as we just experience a real downturn in civilization, and we get to experience the warming of the planet, the removal of basic human rights, and also general complete lack of awareness and sensitivity towards other people's, I want to say, quality of living. A lot of this is on my mind, I suppose, because one, it's kind of unavoidable. But also, AJ isn't here. You probably already gleaned this. It's kind of say it's tricky. It's very tricky trying to keep a relationship, keep the relationship going. No, it's just hard to organize. Obviously being so far away. He's in England. I'm not in England. So, time differences being what they are. But in Vancouver here where I am, there is, just this past week, there were anti-mask protests happening outside of the VGH, that's Vancouver General Hospital, for those of you not in the know, and these motherfuckers, to quote the great Michelle Visage, it's a piece of fabric. I cannot understand someone who feels so incensed that they will not put a mask over their face in the interest of keeping themselves and other people safe to stop the spread of COVID. I realize this is now a very old talking point, and we have now been over this for almost 2 years, but seeing those protests, oh my God, did it bother me. Because these are people who, for those that don't know, it's not even like they were just protesting in front of the hospital. They were fucking putting themselves, they were blocking driveways for ambulances to come in and out of, and also other cars. So that meant that people who were in the throes of cancer treatment, who were going to the hospital, who had a hard time physically getting around because they were so weak and had lost a great degree of their physical faculty, just because Christ, undergoing cancer treatment is no easy feat. These are people who had to, instead of just having the luxury of being pulled up to the front door of the hospital where they could then go into a wheelchair, or just then immediately be in the front doors and walk and then sit, they had to park further away and then trek themselves into the hospital because these dumb ass pieces of shit anti-maskers were blocking the driveways and parking lots. And I'm that to me is such an unconscionable evil. I don't even know how you even begin to go about justifying that behavior or empathizing with that behavior, or it's funny because I find myself oscillating between wanting to empathize and understand people in the interest of bridging some conversational emotional gap where we can sort of come together. And I suppose despite maybe what's good for me, I do actually have an innate optimism where I'm maybe we can all come together and sort of have this kumbaya moment. But then you look at people who are doing that, and I don't know how you justify that. I don't know how humanly you hold that in your head and in your heart and you can live with that decision. And it's weird. There was someone on my Instagram who admittedly, by the way, I should say is not a friend. It's one of those things where it's we followed each other years ago and it's and now we're on each other's feeds. But he posted something. It was this kind of not so ominous story on Instagram, and it was just it was just a little panel of some dialogue that he wrote, and it was just what did he say? He said ladies, how would you feel if your employers forced you to go on birth control? I, of course, know what he's making reference to, but I was like, let me poke and prod a little bit further just so I can make him say it. And so I, slid up into those DMs and I replied to the story and I just said, can I ask what this is in reference to? And he just wrote back, well, what do you think? And I said, well, look it. I said, if this is about mandates now for places of work, making it mandatory for employees to be vaccinated, I said, one, I don't think pregnancy is a great analogy here because, fun fact about pregnancy, it's not contagious. I never in my life have looked at a woman or female identifying person who was coming to full term and then had myself immediately developed sympathy cramps. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's not like, oh my God, and then I went to, pee on a stick and then boom, I was pregnant. I mean, this is not a great analogy. And also, by the way, it's like, first of all, this is also the week in Texas where they ripped the right for women to have, advocacy and agency over their bodies in relation to being pregnant out of their hands. So I'm like, maybe why don't you pick a lane, dude? It's like, is the narrative here that you're going to not let women keep their babies or that you are going to force them to keep their babies? I'm like, some clarification in the POV would be much appreciated. But I was like, I responded to him and I was like, A, I don't think this is the most apt analogy, but also it's like, don't you feel that this is actually a very reasonable measure to take in the interest of keeping people safe? And he was like, well, he's like, I want to stress, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but he's one of those people who's like, well, I think we're getting lied to on both sides. And I'm like, we're not. But we are not. We are not getting lied to on both sides. We have a medical informed professional community who are working with the vaccine and viruses writ large, who are helping to build a knowledge base for how we can effectively and safely engage in the world. And then there are other people who, let's say, do not have those jobs and are completely inventing their own facts or are listening to people who also have no business espousing any general wisdom in relation to any virus, any outbreak, any disease, any medical condition, any vaccine or anything. And, he was like, well, I just, basically his point of view just being like, well, I just, I can empathize with these people and I just want to make sure that, they're being heard. And I had a moment of being like, yeah, I get it. But at what point do we, and maybe we're coming to this moment now with, the mandate coming into play for workplaces to be vaccinated. But I'm like, at what point do we not give space to a lie? These people have opinions that are not rooted in any fact or logic. And I don't know, this is a very base example, but if someone walked around and said well, the sky is, I was going to say the sky is black, but considering the state of the world, that could be a very real possibility in the next few years. But if someone was like, listen, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, bright blue sky, someone was like, well, the sky is black. Do you entertain that? Or do you say well, no, it's actually bright blue. And we know this because there is such a thing as a color palette, and we've developed a language and intel around what, different shades and hues are. We don't need to indulge people who are lying or not operating with accurate information. If you went to a bank teller and if you were like, hi, I want to withdraw $5, and they're like, great, here's $3, and you would say, well, wait a minute, I'm missing $2. Where are my other $2? And they said, well, to me, this is $5. I've decided, myself and my close group and tight-knit, little community of friends, we've decided $3 is actually $5. And if you think about it, $3 could actually buy you a lot of things at certain places that would be worth $5 elsewhere, but maybe would be worth $3 somewhere else. It's like, no. $5 is $5. The sky is blue. Vaccines are safe. I'm so incredulous about it. And I just, I'm very lucky that, I am not in a position where I have to deal with like anti-vax people in my life. I am luckily very spared in that regard. It was fascinating, I will say, when I visited LA a week ago, talking to American friends of mine who were like, oh yeah, no, my whole immediate family like are anti-vax, or they don't believe it. Like they think COVID's a hoax, and I'm like, what? I don't even I just don't even know how you communicate or connect with that person. Someone who so willfully says no to logic. I'm incensed. I'm totally incensed. I'm also on day 4 of no sugar, and I'm going to tell you something right now. It's not great. My thing is, like, I am a person who eats for comfort. Like, I wish I could be a person who's like, I eat for nutrition and for nutrients and sustenance. And I'm like, no, I eat to help amplify and or diminish the emotion I'm feeling moment to moment throughout my life. And I'm like, so it's like, if things really exciting, I'm like, great, let's use food to celebrate. Or if I'm like sad, I'm like, well, then let's have this fun thing to, help nurture this feeling. It's so bad. But I am unfortunately a person who, like, if I could eat donuts every single goddamn day of my life, and especially now when like there's so little like positive thing to hang your hat on, it's like I really do just want sugar all the time, but also I'm like, this will build plaque in my brain and I won't be able to think. And also, like, girlfriend does not have enough money to buy a new wardrobe around my expanding waistline. I mean, it's just, it's such a bad move. I'm curious to know if anyone else is, I don't know if you're on a diet. I have no idea if you're just trying to be more careful about what you're eating. If you have any like tricks or tips on how to navigate around, sugar cravings, for the love of Christ, DM me on Twitter. I'm at Liam Garrow, or you can slide into my DMs on Instagram. I'm at Liam Garrow there as well. Also, if you have stories about dealing with anti-mask or anti-vax people in your family or with your friends, I would be really curious to hear about those experiences. If you feel comfortable enough sharing, and if you also want to be anonymous, by all means, feel free to let me know that you don't want me to use your name. But, reach out on Twitter, on Instagram, and feel free to share your story there, because I would be interested to know how everyone is handling that. Because admittedly, as I said, I've not really had to cross this bridge. It's insane. I was going to be like, and I'm so lucky. It's insane to say that I'm lucky for that reason. It should just be a given. But what can you do? I mean, I don't know. I had this moment where I'm like, I oscillate between like not thinking about it and being totally fine. And then like the second I sort of like zoom out and look at like, oh, what is going to happen to us? I'm like, oh my God, I just want to order donuts right now. You know what I mean? The great news though is that Colin Rourke is on the show today. Colin, if you do not know him, this is the most clumsiest transition, but Colin, I have to tell you, he's the goddamn best. He is a comedian and an actor based currently out of Chicago, but as we discussed in the episode, maybe there's an impending move happening, but you absolutely need to follow him on Twitter, because he is someone who he doesn't really tweet that often. Like, literally his whole Twitter are just like videos that he puts out, and they're like small character sketches or scenes, and they are fucking hilarious. Like, he just is so goddamn good. He is at Ballin_Rourke on Twitter, BALLIN_Rourke, ROURKE. And you should please, please, please follow him there. He is really worth it. He's so hilarious, and we get to chatting in this episode, and he's a total delight to talk to. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. As I mentioned, my handles are just my first and last name, @Liam Garrow. And September 30th, if you want to pop over to my Twitter page and my link tree, I have 2 links to, the podcast, of course, that you can listen to on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Please rate, review, and subscribe. I always say it makes a huge difference. Please, please, please. But, under there's also a link that will take you to Bad Dog Theater. I am teaching the newest iteration and expanded version of my pilot writing course that I went on hiatus for during the summer. But, fall, she's around the corner. She's ready to have us settle in with a thick flannel and just an orange, sort of an orange spiced scented candle and a thoughtful novel as we just sort of tuck in for the fall months. And so if you're looking for something to do as we are barreling forward towards what is ultimately going to look like probably another lockdown because of these people who won't get the fucking vaccine. If you want something to do and if you want help writing your original pilot idea, feel free. Sign up for this course. There are just a few slots left. It's an 8-week course. All the details are on the website. So pop over to my link tree on my Twitter and get all the class details there. It's going to be a fun class. It's always been a really great time. So be sure to do that. And I don't think I have any promo things. I'm fighting the urge so hard right now to not just Uber Eats 4 donuts to my apartment right now. Anyway. Well, look, this is my chat with Colin. He's truly a delight. You're going to love him. Let's take a listen now, shall we? Let's listen. Here's Colin. Colin, I hear you.
You do?
I hear you crystal clear. Wow.
Amazing.
Wow. Listeners, the journey that Colin and I have just endeavored on together, we've overcome different time zones, geographical distances, and technical snafus to really finally come together in this moment. How do you feel emotionally about what we just have overcome?
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, totally. Honestly, let's scrap this, I guess. I guess
Okay,
what I want to say is never mind. No, Colin.
Agreed.
Okay. I start sobbing. Okay, cool. Colin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I have to tell you, I've been
Yes.
very looking forward to talking to you.
Oh my God, as well here. I'm so excited.
Well, because you are a person who I can't even understand your ratio here, but literally every time you drop a video on Twitter, it consequently becomes the funniest thing I've ever seen. And
That's so nice.
I just think you are so hilarious and bright and incredible. And I was like, let's see before you become a huge superstar if you'll do this show. I'm trying to get in ground level. I'm trying to get in on this.
Thank you so much. That is so kind. I don't think superstar is something in my future, but that is so very kind of you.
Disagree. I think, I mean, I don't think I don't know. And maybe this is my cockeyed optimism of the world, but I need to believe that people like you are going to make it. This is my thing.
Oh my God. That's so kind. That warms my heart.
Well, come on. So wait a minute. Walk me through. How's life looking for you right now? Are you vaxxed? Are you getting out there? Oh no, you're frozen. Okay, wait.
1 second.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to relocate where I am currently sitting.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say I'm going to relocate.
Can you hear me on that?
Yes. Yeah. No. I can hear you. When you were I'm going to relocate where I am, I was that was very funny to me because I was geographically, in the country? Yes, we're traveling.
Joe.
We're traveling.
Sorry.
We're
1 second.
traveling.
Are you
Oh
gonna
my
be
God.
using your room for like the next hour? Okay. Or I can do it out here. I'm doing a podcast, yeah. I just need it quiet, but my room is getting no Wi-Fi right now. Are you using this space for something? Or not? Oh, I'm saying I can do it out here then.
Can you just
We
tell
can
your
stay
roommate
out
that we
here.
want him to change actually on the podcast?
Okay. Yes, I will. I will send
Yeah.
everyone that notice.
Yeah, actually. Oh my God, your apartment is so nice.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we live in Chicago, so we do get the benefit of like and there's four of us that live here, so we do get the benefit of a bigger space.
And so
Um,
wait a minute. I also feel like it's just like you and so many comedy people are in this house. It's like your own little mini like comedy commune.
yes, it essentially is. There's been six comedians that have lived here within the past, year or so.
That's either
And
a nightmare scenario or a dream. You'll let me know.
yes, thankfully it has been a dream.
Okay, good.
Um, could have been a nightmare. Forgive me as I do some IT here.
Please.
Do you want me to hook my mic back up?
You want to know something? You sound great. It's totally your call.
Do I?
You sound
Okay,
great.
I'll leave it as is.
Colin, you sound great.
Okay, we're back.
Honestly, we're back and we're better than ever. Oh my God, I can see you. This is so good.
Yay.
And you let your roommate know this will go 3 hours. Did I hear you say right? 3 hours, you said?
Yes, that's exactly correct.
Okay, perfect. We want to do a deep dive. If you can actually remember the moment you were born, I would love for you to walk me through that.
Oh, it was the best day of my whole life.
Oh my God. I mean, that's honestly okay, great. I guess like walk me through
That's all it was?
your head's crowning and then no, I'm curious to know. So well, because also Chicago is such an incredible like comedy town as well.
Hmm.
Like so
Yes.
like it's I'm curious, so like were you like a Second City kid? Did you do classes? Did you do that whole thing?
Yeah, so I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago. So I grew up in this town called Tinley Park. And when I was there, when I was like a little kid, I don't know what age, not little, around like grammar school, first or second grade, I was doing like plays, but then I was like taking the classes at like the community rec center. And Second City did this just kind of this like one-off workshop class with the rec center, and I ended up taking it, and it was like an improv class. And I did that for like 2 years, and then I just like stopped, and I never went back to theater really or anything else until after I graduated college. And after I graduated, I came straight to Chicago because that's where like all my family lived. And I started taking classes at Second City right away. So in 2016 is when I started taking classes there. And then right before we went into the little pandemic we all just had,
Mm-hmm.
I was on the house company at Second City. So
Wait,
right before we logged off.
did you ever cross paths with Jake Farrington?
If I saw a picture, I might be able to say yes.
Because this is also like to me it's like a narrow community because it's like he was a Second City person and like a gay performer and also was on House Co. So I'm like
Oh, okay.
and so I'm like I'm so curious to know if there was any overlap. But all that to say, maybe not. Maybe not.
If I saw a picture, there's a solid chance that we have crossed paths in this
Jake
town.
Farrington, let me just do the quickest Google. Jake Farrington
Okay,
looks
that's what I was gonna do
like
too.
okay, Jake Farrington looks like if like a person was like chiseled from stone. Um
Oh,
it's like it's kind of like a that situation. Okay, I'm about to send you a link in the chat right
oh,
now.
I'm already looking.
Oh, love that.
No, I do not. So, okay, so I think Jake might have been a little bit before my time, only because I'm looking at his bio,
Mm.
and his bio says that he was on this whole podcast becomes about Jake Farrington.
I hope. I mean,
Um,
God, he would love that. He honestly, he needs this publicity right now. We all do. So this would be huge for him.
He was on the Norwegian Dawn, which was like Second City used to do cruise ships.
Oh,
So
I
they
know.
have like their two main stages, then they have their cruise ships and their tour co. But they haven't done cruise ships. They hadn't done cruise ships for about a year or so,
Well,
since I was involved with Second City.
because I had a lot of friends that did boat co, and
Oh, okay.
uh-huh. And that was always a thing. Every single time someone came back, it was like, so let me tell you about the newest current iteration of the most illegal thing that just took place on this boat.
Yes.
It was like not a good environment. As it turns out,
No.
comedians, when they are locked up and only have alcohol at their disposal, don't behave very well.
No, it's a recipe for disaster. Although I would have killed to have done a boat.
Oh,
I was always asking. I was like, what's the deal with the boats? Are they going to be cruising again? What's going on?
well, because the money was quite good.
The money was great, and it was like you got to like quit your day job for like 3 months. And I knew people who did like, I think like multiple boat contracts in a row. So they were like on a boat for like a year, and it was like, ah, what a dream that would be.
I remember though, it was so funny because I knew friends who like when they first started Boco at the beginning of it, they were like, yes, energized, can't wait, let's do it. And then literally they'd finish their contract like 4 months later and they would come back just um, like, just kind of like that old woman sitting in the rocking chair in Great Expectations, just like rocking
Yeah.
back and forth with the pages of the calendar turning and she has cobwebs all over her. Like it was very
Hmm.
much that energy where it's like, oh, something horrible has happened.
Yes. Something horrible has happened. Wait, were you in? How long were you in Chicago for?
I was a Toronto kid. So it was like that it was
Okay, okay,
that
okay.
Second City community. And so it was like so I knew people there and then it was like so basically every nightmare story that you heard about in Chicago,
Hmm.
imagine that but then in a different city.
Totally.
It's all the same
Absolutely.
thing. It's all the same nightmare personalities. It's all the same
Oh
people
yeah.
who you're like, I remember I had a friend who did main stage and like I remember I can't remember why maybe because there were students who were like marveling at having like done main stage and they like and I remember one person was like all like doe-eyed and like wide-eyed was like, have you ever talked to Andrew Alexander? And then my friend Aurora was like, I've yelled at Andrew Alexander and I was like, great, love this. Love this. Andrew
That's so
Alexander,
funny.
former head of Second City, no more.
Yes, no
Is
more.
are
He
they
is
is
gone.
Second City like coming back?
Yes, so they are back in some capacities. So they are currently doing um, they are performing on the main stage in ETC stages. They are
Uh-huh.
not doing their normal reviews right now. I think I haven't gone to see the show yet. From my understanding, from what I've heard, I believe it's a mix of improv and archive material. Um, I think it's probably because like we just went through like the everyone just went through the worst year of their lives, right? And it's like I don't know if it's like the perfect time for Second City to be doing like biting satirical comedy.
Oh,
Um,
good point.
Also coming off of just like the worst 4 years where it was like it was hard. Second City also pulls in like a very white centered suburban audience,
Yeah.
and like all of their performers are pretty liberal, politically active, and so a lot of the shows are like making kind of some statements, but then it's like the audience at that point, I think like right before the election, everybody was just like you know done with it. Nobody wanted to like see it anymore, and so when the shows ended in March, when like the theater shut down, no matter when they came back, if it was a month later or like a year later, like now they are, this show would have had to been rewritten no matter what. There was no way that they could do the show that they were doing at that time. So I think
Yeah.
they're like in process again, but I haven't been really made aware of anything going on in that building.
Yeah, I remember that was a big shock because I think for like friends of ours that and not unlike yourself, like when you are in the comedy community, so much of your initial like getting out there is in like smaller theaters where the audiences tend to skew kind of more towards your age demographic and also like
Um,
political proclivities, ideologies, what have you. And then when you're sort of, I don't know, quote unquote, snatched up by the bigger theater, like by Second City, I remember it being like
mhm.
a huge, because not unlike in Chicago, like Toronto, they're also pulling in out of towners, right? And it's all like
Oh
middle aged,
yeah,
white, suburby, right? That kind of thing. And
yeah,
I
totally.
remember, like, and this, by the way, would have been in like 2017. So think about how recent this is. I had a friend who
Hmm.
was on main stage who she just in an improv set said the word period and the audience gasped. And you're like, that is horribly embarrassing.
Yeah, insane.
It's
It is crazy.
But then don't you,
It's just nuts.
it's no, it's totally bananas, but it's like, but then don't you think, like, aren't you so, I guess, grateful that you have the outlet or, like, I don't know, the work ethic or, I don't know, the go get 'emness enough to, like, really sort of develop your own material. And even with the stuff that you're putting out on Twitter, it's like it gets to be totally your voice, and it's, it's your point of view, and it gets to really not have to go through the filter of, you know, a company's ideals or sensibilities.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, like that is where I feel like I mean, I came to Chicago just to do like improv. Like I was really fascinated by like just the art of improv, and I
Hmm.
still am to some degree. I know a lot of people like kind of like poo-poo on it and like shit on it once they like make it, or like people who like end up doing stand-up as their full career, but like I really do like it. It helps me source almost all of my material. Um, but like there was a point in time where like you know, sketches that were being filtered through like, you know, certain theaters like the Second City, it was like, okay, well, I really, this is me just trying to fit a mold. Like
Hmm.
I'm writing for like how, what I think a review looks like, or like I'm writing
Instead
a
of,
skill set
right,
sketch,
right.
or I'm writing like a political, like I don't, most of my stuff isn't super political. It's just like very dumb characters who are unaware of the world. And
I
that's what I found. Go
I
ahead.
think that's no, I think that's not only that, but it's like I think it's even so much more nuanced, because I think the brilliance of your comedy, I'm going to make you more uncomfortable with more compliments. Get ready. But I really think the brilliance of what you're doing is you are really, and I'm sure because this is being facilitated through improv, so it's by its nature, it feels very sort of spontaneous and very plugged into something very like immediate feeling and
Mhm.
very conversational. You have an incredible facility of finding the comedy in the nuances of, I think, uncomfortable human behavior. And it like it lives in the way that a character is, slightly stammering through a sentence. It lives it lives in how conversationally and sort of blissfully unaware, as you're saying, someone is about the rest of the world around them. Like, it's so, like, that's why I think it's so incredible what
Oh,
you're
that's
putting
so
out.
nice. Yeah, I
i
mean, that's
I also
like,
need to tell you, I am not usually this like loquacious about like people, like the videos that people put up on Twitter. So I just want you to know this is not just how I
no, I
am.
believe you.
Okay.
I believe you. I believe you. Yeah, no, that's, I mean, that's very nice. That was like, because I hadn't started putting stuff out until like really more so like December of last year, so December of 2020.
Hmm.
Um, I got Twitter in March of 2020, when I was like, I don't know what this is, so I hopped on.
I think I did
Um,
too. I think you and I then had the almost the exact same, or I came in 3 months after you. Or
okay,
2 months. Yeah, I
yes,
only got it in May. So we're little Twitter babies.
yes. I mean, I had it in high school, but then I I thought it went away. I thought it was like Snapchat, which also apparently is still around and people are using. I didn't know this. I'm very late to the game on. I'm so like technologically and app unsavvy. It's incredible. Um, but but yeah, what I wanted to do and my hope was with like a lot of the videos, like as I started to put more out, was like I like when people kind of question the reality of it, like if it is this like a real thing or is
Right.
this a character, because that then to me is kind of a note of like, okay, I kind of was doing what I was hoping to do. um and it's,
Because
I
it's
mean, I
so
know like,
grounded. It's so grounded.
yeah, and that a lot of that is like, I owe it to the people I'm like doing it with, like Miranda, who I do a lot of my videos with. She's the girl with the short brown hair.
Is she the
um
girl who's in the car with you when you're going around giving out the drinks?
Yes, yeah, that's her, and she's in the wedding video too.
Yeah.
She is one of my favorite improvisers in Chicago. She's my neighbor actually, so it's so easy to like do stuff with her because she's right next door. So yeah, so with her, it's I will just text her and I say, "Do you want to do this idea?" And then we set a camera up and we a lot of times like that wedding video was just us improvising for like a half hour, and then I kind of just cut it up into pieces. Um,
Right, because it
which
is
I
just
mean,
that
it's
one
just so
shot,
fun.
right? Because you just
Yeah, it's
have the
just
camera
one shot.
stationary. Right, 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 right.
Yeah, and then we just let it run for a half hour, and our sometimes we'll like we'll improvise something that we found. We'll improvise something, we'll find a line, and then just say it again to like tee ourselves up and to make it quicker for editing purposes. But yeah, it is. I do like that idea of like the audience questioning the reality of it. I mean, that was why like like mockumentaries and all those are my favorite shows because
Hmm.
it feels more real than a here's a joke, tossed up to an audience. I don't know. It just feels a
Well,
little bit more in the moment.
yeah, and very sort of lived in, I suppose. And I think, and this is sort of the beauty though with improv, is because it isn't like, it's so funny, so I'm not an improviser, I'm a writer, but everything that I write, I try and make it sound like it is being improvised. Like the whole goal, of
Yes,
course, is like you want to write something like someone just had the thought, right? Like
totally.
that it just occurred to them. And
Hmm.
of course, this is very difficult to do, but then the luxury of improv is like you are just having that. And so then the beauty of watching it is like you are watching someone discover a moment on stage for the first time.
Yeah, it's
And
so fun.
and it's so funny because I know what you mean also about like how quick people are to shit on improv. Just so you know, this is a very safe space for you to pontificate about and sort of feel free to speak at length about, because I always felt like, and I would love to know sort of why you fell in love with it and sort of what your thoughts are about the beauty of improv. But I always felt like when I was watching improv on stage that was like really, really good, like really
Hmm.
good, I was like, oh, this is like the closest thing that like we have to watching like a true magic trick.
Oh my God. It is okay. It is so crazy that you say that because that is almost the word for word for word for word what I tell people. That
Really?
it is yes, I'm not even kidding. I was like waiting to say that when you were done talking. That it is truly, it's the closest thing that we have to magic. Though when it is done to its highest quality and like and best, like it is because it's you are seeing it at the same time as the people doing it. It's
Hmm.
happening like in that moment. And so it can never be like recreated again for a camera where it would be just as good. It's just in that moment, and that's why it's like so. I think it's just so cool when it's done well.
Can you
That is
remember like,
crazy.
well, like, do you remember the moment when you first saw, whether it was that you saw really incredible improv or when it was just sort of made available to you where you were like, whatever that is, give me that. I want to get
Mm.
involved with that.
Yeah, I was taking classes at Second City, so I was already doing improv, but I was
Hmm.
doing improv because I was like, oh, I've seen their review shows. I think I just saw like Panic on Cloud 9 or something, and I was like, oh, I want to do that, whatever like that is. So I wanted to do sketch first, and then in terms of like studying the actual art form, and then one of my teachers at Second City, um, in Second City and IO and Annoyance, everyone in Chicago floats and bounces around to all the theaters, like I'm sure you know it in New York and LA.
Hmm.
Um, and they were like, "We're going to IO Theater to go see a show. Would you want to come?" And so I said yes, and then we went and saw a show, and it was I was so like fascinated by it. I don't know if I was like fully laughing the whole time, but like it had my attention from like the moment they started. And I remember they did this thing where it was I don't remember who the second guy was. The first guy was Namdi, who's now based in LA. But it was they were doing two prov, which is two people performing improv, and for those listeners, and they like did this thing where they were performing a scene and they were like wrestling each other as if they were in like a ring, and then they just started like going back and forth as if they were fighting over a microphone, and they were changing the scene to a different scene to them like fighting over the microphone to start doing karaoke. And I was like taken aback. I was like, what? Wait, what did they just do? Like they had like transitioned to the scene, and I thought it was such a cool thing that like caught me by surprise. And I wanted to like learn how to do that. I was like,
Right.
that is such a cool, because to me it was like a trick. Like there are like, as you would know, like certain moves in improv that you can do, tagging someone, yada yada yada. And like to an audience member for the first time who was fresh eyes, that feels like something they've never considered possible in the world.
Well, and I also was just so impressed at how, oh, because you know what? Well, and you'll know these people because they're like, Chicago improv royalty, but TJ and Dave came to Toronto to do a show at Main Stage. And it was
Oh.
so, and it was just the two of them. And I don't know how they squared it away where they were performing on the main stage. It must have been on a night where maybe the city was darker. They did like the show instead of the touring company. I can't remember,
Hmm.
but or maybe they did a late show. But we saw them, and I even just remember like not only were they incredible, And so like all of those things were in place. But then also like the thing that blew my mind even just was like the attention to detail. Cause I can't remember I can't remember which one of them it was, but like they went to fish change out of their pocket. And it was, of course, that it was change that's not there. But
Right.
like even just the minutia of like the hand like really like precisely going into the pocket and then like rooting around in the way that you would to like
Hmm.
grab all the like the loose change and then to procure it as though he had collected something like. And I know that maybe sounds very sort of like wanky to sort of fawn over, but like even just the precision, like when you're looking at live improv and live theater and character comedy that is done that well, like I just am so in awe of it.
Oh, me too. Yeah, like when people like, I mean, I think that's what makes improv like high quality improv is when you have people who are just committing to it wholeheartedly,
Yes.
and that is like it's just then the possibilities are endless with what you could do with it. And I think that's what really excited me about it. So when I did see that show, I immediately I think I signed up for classes to IO like the next day, and
Yeah.
that's where I feel like I say a lot of times like I learned what improv was at Second City, but I learned how to improvise at IO.
Do you want to know something? You
Yes.
are articulating something that for like every comedy nerd that's listening to this, you just rang so many bells because I think that's true for a lot of people, certainly that I know, where like I know a lot of people who also like, they do their curriculum at Second City or, at the larger theater place, wherever it is for somebody, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, and that's where they learn it. But where they're actually getting the opportunity to perform and have stage time, it's not in the larger theater, is it? I mean,
No.
it's in these smaller spaces where like you can really get on and clock in your time and learn.
No, totally. Yeah, yeah. And I think even like then when you like break it down even further, then when you're at like IO theater, then you learn about like annoyance, and then you learn about
Hmm.
all the other small theaters in Chicago like CIC, Logan Square. And that's where like you are really able to start finding your own voice in Chicago because you're not worried about who's in the audience as much as you are at those other theaters. You're kind of just doing your thing.
When you're on stage performing, and particularly, if you are performing for the out of towners, as we'll say, or
Hmm.
the suburbanites. I mean, because I know people who, when they were in front of those crowds, and I'm talking about gay performers, they really, without meaning to, found themselves kind of adjusting their behavior to sort of make take a stab at passing,
Hmm.
so that maybe they could feel less visible in front of those audience members. I'm just curious to know if you've had that experience or if you've had those feelings of trying to sort of adjust your own voice and sort of general being on stage to sort of fit in with the audience.
I don't not after I came out. Before I
Oh,
came out,
good.
potentially. Um, but after I did, I don't think so. I think it was like once I had come out, I was very much like I didn't really care.
Mm,
And the community in Chicago is like so um great about like no matter what move you make, like everyone will support it on stage. And I think that's what was so like comforting to like be yourself on stage because you knew like say I do this thing that I uniquely find funny to who I am and like my values and like my voice, but the general audience that we have in front of us does not. Like I know somebody will step up from the back line and like make a move that supports it so that I don't feel just like so abandoned out there.
hmm
Um, but I never had that moment where I was like, if I did any material that, you know, lean into my gayness or whatnot, I never like retracted necessarily. I think if anything, I pushed a little
Leaned
harder.
in. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because not to bring it back to Jake Farrington, but
No.
he talked about on this show, like he would get notes also sometimes from directors, basically, if he could act less femme.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. And so
Yeah.
and
That's
it's just,
silly.
yes, sure it is. And then of course, Jake being who he is, he would then like super butch it up and basically become like a Neanderthal just to communicate
Hmm.
how stupid he thought that note was. But
Right.
it's really interesting. Like I think we generally, yes, are making very positive strides in a very forward direction. I mean, I hope anyway, sort
Hmm.
of generally in the world, but it is flummoxing, isn't it? When you still come across that person where it's like, oh, you belong to this era of thinking.
Oh,
Ah,
totally.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that is like a lot of, I didn't come across it in many performers, but I think that was something that like the community in general sees with like a lot of um, teachers or directors who have been
yeah.
around for a long time. I mean, a lot of the archive material that like when you would audition for Tour Co with Second City is
Hmm.
bad, like
Oh, it's
gore,
some of it
like
is
bad, bad, bad.
shocking. Some of it is there's a scene from Chicago. It's Stephanie Weir and Kevin. Is his last name Dorff? No.
No, I don't know.
The whole anyway. The point is basically like it's like Kevin is playing a super aggro boss, and
Hmm.
it's like Stephanie Weir and another person on stage, and then the whole punchline is he pulls out his belt and pretends to whip them.
Yeah.
And I was
Oh,
like,
I do know what sketch you're talking about.
yeah, it's
Yes.
like from 1998, and you're like, no,
Yeah.
no.
It's just, and I don't know why they continue to use that archive material. It blows my mind.
I had friends do it. They were told to do it in Toronto as part of the touring company in like 2014. And can I
Uh,
tell you, every single time they put it up on stage, it played to silence. But the director was like, no, I think you just need to make this adjustment. It's like, dude, this
yeah.
scene did not age well. You need to put it away right now.
Uh-huh. It's so crazy. I mean, even in the sense of like, even if it's not um like derogatory in any sense, like comedy like changes like
Yes.
with the world. So to have someone doing comedy from like the 80s or 90s, like sketches like that, and think it's gonna hit in the same capacity that it hit back then, just like it makes no sense to me. And I don't know why we were doing those sketches. I was like, why don't we do a main stage or ETC sketch that was from 2 to 3 years ago? Like
Hmm.
that the relevance is still there to some degree if it's not political, and like it just blows my mind why they continue to do that. And hopefully, coming back out of this pandemic, there's been like a, to my understanding, somewhat of a change
Hmm.
in the powers that be at these institutions, that things like those will change, because it's just like I it's hard for me because I think the people who are doing the best comedy right now are not the people who have stuck around for ages and ages and ages and ages using the same material over and over again.
Can I tell you why they reuse all those like super, super, super old scenes? It's
Yeah,
because those are the scenes that those directors and teachers know how to stage. That's why.
probably.
Like
Yeah,
literally, it's as simple as they're like, "Oh, I know how this needs to look on stage, so let's just do that." I swear to
right.
God. I
Yeah.
swear to God. I'm curious to know now that like the world is
Mhm.
kind of opening back up a little bit. Like, what is life looking like for you now? Are you getting out there? Are you throwing ass at clubs? Tell me what are you what are you what is life looking like for you now that maybe things are sort of starting to, I don't know, retain some sense of normalcy?
Yes, comedy clubs are like dance clubs.
I mean, when are they not? When are they
That's
not? It's just a lot of like, it's a lot of like really awkward movers, but dancing with all the confidence in the world.
100%.
Yeah, yeah. Have you
In terms of like,
performed?
once, a single time.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, so we did an outdoor show like 2-ish weeks ago. It was my roommates Garrett, True, and I, and we did a show in like a friend of ours' garage. They were putting up an improv show mixed with stand up, and um, it was probably one of my worst shows I've ever done.
Well, but I mean,
Well, and I say that with being like Garrett and Drew were so good. It was just like I was so, there weren't that many people. It was filled to what it could be filled to. It's a
yeah.
garage. But I was like, I had the same nerves that I had when I was like going up on stage for the first time, because I was like, I'm just nervous to be up here doing this again.
Right.
Um,
Here's the
but
thing.
it was so fun.
We need to tell audiences too, like everyone needs for the like I want to say like the next 3 months, audiences need to cut performers some slack because like this whole thing of like losing the muscle, like that is real.
Oh yeah,
And
it
like,
was real. If you missed it, if you went on like a 2 week vacation, it
yes,
was real.
I
So
was literally
to come back from a year.
now for me to throw this back at you, I'm losing my mind because I also was literally going to say if you stopped doing it for 2 weeks, it felt like you were like, oh, I've never done this before.
100%. it's like you have to like retrain your brain and like how to make those moves. But it was so fun. It was so fun. Um, we're gonna start getting back into some shows. I think Garrett and I have been talking about putting up a show in August in Chicago,
Ooh.
um, before we leave the city. And so
Wait, are you moving to LA?
we don't know.
Ah!
So so we're definitely moving. Um, yeah, I've been in Chicago since 2016, and Garrett's been in Chicago since I looked at him, but he walked away from me.
Fuck you, Garrett.
2015.
2015. Okay, okay.
2015. So yeah, we've been here for 6ish years, and we've had the best time. We've had so much fun. We've made the best friends, but we both have felt like we've kind of done our thing here, and so yeah, we're gonna move. It's up in the air whether it's LA or New York. It was always, and maybe you can help me make this decision on this
Mm-hmm.
episode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was kind of always LA. We had for the past year or so while we were in the midst of the pandemic said, in October we're going to go to LA. We're going to do one last summer in Chicago because for those listeners who are not in Chicago, Chicago in the summer is the best place in the whole world. It
Mm.
is so much fun. It's truly the only time we can be outside.
Right.
Um, else it's freezing all the other
You know
months.
what? Not enough people say this. I want to say not enough people say this about Chicago. Famously windy. Famously
Famously,
windy, famously,
yes.
famously very cold. And I just feel like maybe not enough people know that. So I'm glad that we can put
No.
that on blast.
Yeah, that no one has a clue. To have
Clue.
clue, like in winter it's cold, and in winter it's windy, and
Mm-hmm.
to have windy cold air is
No.
one of the worst things in the whole
No.
world. Yeah, I mean, I've never cried as much as I did in December.
Oh
But
God.
oh, it was bad. But yeah, so we're thinking about it. I've always thought of LA. We went to LA recently and really liked it. We visited two of our old roommates and a few of our friends out there, and we had such a blast. It was such a good time. But yeah, I don't know. We just it feels very spread out, and it's hard. It feels like a little bit more of a relaxed situation. And I think we're both coming out of this pandemic being like, we want to hustle and do as much and bounce around as quickly as we can to places. So it feels like maybe New York is a bit better of a habitat for that. Um, but we're like 60-40 on that. So
Well,
everything changes our mind every day.
I can tell you, I mean, take this with a grain of salt coming from the Canadian who lives in Vancouver. I will say, so based on my friends who live both in LA and New York, and actually,
Hmm.
funnily enough, uh, uh, people I know who've actually gone from Chicago to LA,
Oh,
one of
cool.
the things that they've sort of said is like the beauty of LA is
Hmm.
that you really are kind of in the heart of everything, and like there is
Yeah.
just so much opportunity around you, and the hustle is very possible because of course there are like a litany of places to perform. the
Hmm.
the thing that they have struggled with in LA is that what you talked about, it's like the spread outness, but not even in relation to, they said, like the actual like getting to and from places. Like it wasn't even that so much that was the issue, but like it really does affect the general culture of the people who sort of operate in that world, right? Because it's like,
Yes.
because how about this? Because everyone's driving, of course, it's like no one's really hanging out after a show,
Right.
right? And so
And that's
then,
I think our
yeah,
biggest thing is like the social culture of it all. Because I think,
yeah,
I'm maybe it's the same in like Vancouver, but like in Chicago, like so much of like this community is like hanging out after a show and getting drinks and like
hmm,
talking and like going and getting a meal at a diner together, or like
right.
it just doesn't feel like that's a thing necessarily in LA.
That was the big thing in Toronto. It was like okay, the show ends at, let's say, I don't know, 9:30 or 10, and then we're
Hmm.
hanging out until maybe midnight. And then at midnight it's like, let's go to the Lakeview, which is the 24-hour diner, and then let's get pancakes at 1 o'clock in the morning. Like it was that.
Yes, and that's the best.
Yeah, the best.
It's the dream.
And so I feel like New York could likely facilitate more of that opportunity, but I will say living in LA, and I mean obviously because of the climate, is much
Yeah.
easier. I think in terms of like a price point, I bet you actually LA is marginally cheaper, if not only for the fact that I think amenities are cheaper there. And
I think so.
I bet you rent is probably comparable to New York.
Probably. Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, but it's really funny. One of my questions was going to be like, do you think you'd ever like move and sort of like, leave Chicago? So this is on the precipice for you. Ooh, I'm excited. Also, I will throw in another vote for LA only because it's like kind of the place where like I'm probably going to wind up. And so then if we're in the same city,
Fun.
we can hang out
Yes.
and
Yes. 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 I know.
we can facilitate the Chicago Toronto thing in LA.
Totally. Would love to do that.
And then we'll
That
just
sounds
get
like a blast.
And then if you don't mind, you can just drive drunk if you're comfortable with that.
Yes. Oh, that's
Okay.
the only thing I do.
Okay, love
I
that.
don't get why there's a law against it.
You
If
want to know
you're good
something?
at it,
You know what? Listen, want to know what the law is for? The law is for
yes.
people who just don't have it together, okay?
No, the law is for the weak.
The laws for the week. The law, I've always famously said the only reason why we're told we can't text and drive is just because there are some people who have not finessed the ability to look down at their phone and then ever so slightly glance up. It's just, it needs
Yes.
to be a quick down, up, down,
Hmm.
up, down, up.
I have one eye on the phone, one eye on the road.
Well, but that's because you were born that way. And
That's
so, and I know viewers can't see you, obviously, right now,
no, but my
but
eyes are all over.
who was that character actor who had famously had the eyes that went in two different directions? There was one, it's not coming to me, but basically, yeah, it's a real Peter Fox situation, and you have one eye that's just glassy eyed and going in one direction, and then one
Is it
eye that's
Mr.
looking right at you.
Bean? No.
No, I want to say it's like an older actor from like
Oh,
Days Gone By. It doesn't even matter. But I think LA, I almost wonder, frankly, because even someone said this to me when I was contemplating moving from Toronto to Vancouver. They're like, go, Toronto's still going to be there. I would try doing time in LA maybe before New York. Because also, like,
interesting.
because like if you decide you hate LA, then great, then you know that, and then just go to New York. Like, who
Hmm.
cares? And um, and I think maybe if not only just because of where you're coming from in Chicago, like LA might just feel like a really cool adventure, just because it is a very different city.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. And I think that's like the hardest part is like I think I know I'm gonna end up in LA like at one point. Like
Right.
I see myself living there. And I had never really considered New York. And then I don't know. I think it's there's a part of me that excites me that like I don't know a ton of people there. Like
In New York or
there's
LA?
a in New York.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a solid amount of people in Chicago, or there's a solid amount of people in LA that I already know, as
Mm,
well as there's like a really a large mass exodus happening in Chicago right now. And I
mm.
think it's like a lot of them are filtering into LA. So there would be that like comfortable base there. Um, but yeah, I like I don't know, I'm excited about being like a little bit scared.
Right.
Because
Right.
I'm so comfortable in Chicago right now.
Well, but honey, that's what driving drunk is for. That's where that fear comes from. You know what
That's
I mean?
right. That's exactly correct.
Like nothing like throwing your car into reverse on the highway,
I know, I
you know?
know. And in those hills, who knows what can happen?
Just pull a Nicole Richie and commit to driving in the wrong lane in the absolute wrong direction.
That's how I'll get noticed.
I think that would be huge for you. And then when you're getting arrested, be like, worked for Nicole Richie.
I yes.
She's
So
getting
why
cast
could
by
it not
Tina
work
Fey
for me?
now. Yeah, so there you go.
I know.
There you go.
Nicole Richie is taking all of my roles.
Ugh, I'm so sorry, honestly, because want to know something? Like, and you and I know this, but like the world
Yes.
doesn't.
I know they didn't figure it out yet.
And like Nicole Richie needs to stop coming for your gig. And it's just, I think it's
Yes.
important that we like fucking put her on blast about that.
I thank God someone said it. I'm
Ugh.
just every time I go in for an audition, she is there, and it sucks. It sucks, but it's something I have to get over.
Thank you for being so brave. I guess
Thank
is
you.
what I want to say.
I'm crying.
Like, remember when you said you hadn't cried so much as when you did in December? Actually, get ready
Uh-huh.
to start crying all over right now.
Yes.
I
I
know, I
love
know.
it.
Listen, I don't want to monopolize too much of your time. I just
Oh
don't.
my God.
Because listen, you said you had an hour. It's been an hour. And I want to tell you that I think you're incredible.
That is so
I
nice.
I am so glad that we are now um Twitter friends, and then hopefully we can be like
Yes,
real
and real
life
friends.
friends. I want us to really hang out in LA. I think that would be a blast.
Oh, I would have so much fun with that. That would be the most exciting thing.
Yeah. And now, so we should tell people if people want
Yes.
access to the hilarity that is Colin Rourke, they should follow you on Twitter at Ballin_Rourke. Ballin is
Yes.
Ballin because you're super cool
Uh,
and you dropped that G. You said don't even need it. I
I
don't
didn't
even
even
need it.
make this up. Like we were laying in True's bed like in March. And the only reason I should say this again that I have a Twitter is because back in March of 2020, my roommates and I made this video that it was like us bouncing up and down to a song called it's like baby I don't. What do you think about things? What do you think about things? I think is what it's called. And it was this like sensational song that was supposed to be in Eurovision, and
Mm-hmm.
it was like that year Eurovision got canceled or something. And so we made like a little video with the song in the background, and it exploded beyond any of our beliefs. And all of them were getting like thousands and thousands of followers the next day. And I was like, "What's going on?" And they were like, you need to get on Twitter. Like this is blowing. I mean, it has like 8 million retweets. Like it's crazy.
I
Um,
need to find this video. Holy smokes. Okay.
okay, I will send it to you in the chat. It's truly nuts. We were on like um we were on some show on like NBC that it was like the best at home videos. It's just us bouncing
Holy
up and
shit.
down. Oh my God, I have to find the video for you.
That see, but this is the thing. And then imagine taking this capital that you have, because this is like really what matters is like how many people are watching your stuff. I mean, you bring that to LA, that's huge.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that, and so I got on Twitter because of that. And then I like had no intention of like really like using it as a source to like make videos or whatnot. But then lo and behold, I mean, like I had seen some of our friends who found like success doing it, like Caleb Heron, Grace Schmidt, Chelsea Holmes, and so I took a stab at it after. But I just sent you the video, so
Oh
when on
my
your free time or even now, take a look at it. It's
gourd.
crazy.
I literally, okay, okay, this is uploaded and ready to go
Oh
for
my
like
God, did I
this.
lose the audio?
No. Did
Oh, it's
you?
because I had it on. It's because I had it on mute because I was, I was like playing the video for a second. Um,
I've got this all locked and loaded and ready to go for as soon as I
okay.
hop off this call. Now,
Yes.
so is there anything else you want to let people know about outside of your Twitter at Ballin_Rourke?
Um,
A potential
no,
show in August, a potential final show in August in
a
Chicago.
potential show in August. You can follow me on Instagram at Colin Rourke. Colin is my real name, ColinRourke. And then yeah, and I think I'm gonna start trying to infuse some of my like character work that I do online into. I'm gonna start trying to create like an act. So I'm
Yes.
also gonna be doing intermixing some stand up in there as well. So I'm gonna be trying, and I am not a stand up, so this will be kind of new territory for me. But my friend Maggie Winters is gonna kind of help me um, get into that area.
I only know Maggie through Twitter. Like she and I don't like we've not interacted. I'm saying like I just know of her because of Twitter. Holy
Uh-huh.
fuck, she's hilarious. Jesus
She's so
Christ.
funny, and a brilliant improviser. She is so funny.
Oh, you can tell
Um,
from her videos where I'm like again, it's just like it's what an incredible brain she has.
oh my God, her Garrett and I had dinner last night. And it was just we were laughing the whole time.
Um I this is how I end every episode. It's with this question.
Yes.
So don't put
The,
pressure on yourself because it's not
okay.
it doesn't need to be the most of anything. It doesn't need to be the most recent or the most far away. Just Colin,
Oh my
when I
God.
ask you to share a
Hmm.
happy memory, what comes to mind?
Oh my God, that's a really good question. Um, I would say a happy memory for me is, um, I think like in the summer of last year. Oh my God, can you imagine like the worst time for everybody?
Yeah,
I
imagine
was
you were
like,
like, so I know I said earlier that it was the worst time for everyone. Fun fact about me is I was thriving.
I had the best time of my whole life. Um, I don't know why people were bitching. It was a blast.
Yeah, Chicago in the
Um,
summer, I already told you, it's the best.
it doesn't matter what's going on.
Global pandemic be damned. You know that sun is
Right?
gorgeous.
No. My friends were like, "There's a pandemic. There's a protest." I'm like, "But there's a party." Uh,
Yeah, you say protest. I see a group of people who are ready to drink.
yes. This way, I'm like leading the people off the street into my home.
Yeah, it's just love.
Um,
And they're like, okay, and they're like, sorry, wait, but like we're in the middle of a pandemic. You're like, yeah, and the only disease we're spreading is joy, people.
hello.
Hello.
Um, um, but I will say, last summer was the first time that, um, because up until that point, we have been doing, at one point, we were doing like shows like 7 nights a week
Hmm.
leading up to like right before we shut down. And in the summer, it was the first time I got to experience a summer in a long time that was like, felt like a kid again. Like I got to like go out and like hang out with my friends and like ride our bikes everywhere. It was just so dumb, but we spent almost all of our days like at the lake. Um, and they had closed the beaches off for who the fuck knows what reason. Logistically, that didn't make sense. So we
Well,
were
I
like
think a
sitting.
lot of the crustaceans just wanted a break. They're like, honestly, if you know
Yeah,
what, if the world's gonna shut down, we would honestly love to take a breather too and not deal with all this people nonsense.
and they deserve it,
They
so I get
deserve
it.
it. They deserve it.
But we would sit on like the lake has this unique thing where there's also kind of just like a seawall, and so you can like jump into the seawall and there's ladders put all over the place for you to get out. And so it was like me and my friends almost spent all of our days there, and it was fun because it was like it really was like a lot of the relationships that I had formed through comedy, um, were just expanding from like just seeing each other at shows and like hanging out after shows. It really became like a solid friendship, that and it got me through like that whole bullshit of a year. And so, yeah, I think that those memories were like, there was shit happening everywhere all the time and it was always on your mind. But those moments with like friends at the lake was a little bit of it like pokes a hole in the balloon and let the air out. And
Yeah.
that was a good memory.
That honestly, it's not even my memory, and it's like making me like all happy for you. I mean, for Pete's sake.
Well,
Um, you were such a blast to talk to. I can't even begin to really let you know. I mean,
oh
seriously.
my God, that's so nice. Thank you so much. You as well. This is so fun.
Oh,
I love
good.
that
Well, then you should come back
you're
and do the show
down
another
for it.
time.
Can I host it?
Okay, so anyway, that's our time. You look up and the screen is black. Great.
Yeah.
You know how like remember how we already talked about how we don't like how Nicole Richie's coming for your gigs? Great news. It doesn't
Hmm.
feel good the other way.
I get it, but it's tough. The industry is tough.
Honestly,
You
it's
have
so
to know
tough.
that.
Thick skin, not unlike the crustaceans that needed
Thick
that
skin.
break. Thick skin, thick
That
skin.
was amazing. Oh, did you do that with your tongue?
No, I know,
What?
I know. I don't know
Just
why I can
so
do that.
for the listeners who can't visually see what happened, he's just knocking on the top of his head. Oh my God. That is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Do you want to know what it is? My brain, famously small, and it's very smooth because this bitch has never had an original thought in her life. That's all that is. Yeah, and that's the energy I'm bringing this year to Pride.
Yeah.
Dumb whore.
That's
um,
so funny.
do you want
It's
to
like
make
these
that?
people are labeled as like twinks and like daddies, and you're labeled as dumb whore.
Yeah, for me, I guess I'm like a fucking dumb slut. I guess. Hope that's okay to March, and I hope you guys will accept me.
To March.
Yeah. Well, I want my own float. Wait, I want to say before you leave, the float I've always
Yes.
wanted for Pride. This was my float idea. It's just queers, fully clothed and reading silently, and then the whole float is literally people like on the car, like looking out to the audience and just telling people to like turn it, like be quiet, just to be like we're trying to read, like pointing to their
That's
book, being like,
so
can you, like
funny.
turn it down, like, and then
Oh
like
man.
even though it's in the dead of summer, it's like people like putting on layers because they're like pretending like the room they're in is super cold.
Oh, That is so well. That's so funny. Garrett and I just did a video. We might release it tomorrow. I don't know. But it's like, and when does this get released? I'm assuming
This
not
is
tomorrow.
this is going to be released actually, but not far away, like in just a couple of weeks.
Oh, perfect. It's so the people will have already seen it. Or maybe they won't. Maybe I'll delete it. But
Maybe you'll get some new foot traffic with this appearance, Colin.
maybe.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Well,
The video is us. We're like on the way to Pride, and we end up getting caught in the parade, and so it's us in the car at
hilarious.
the parade. So it's very funny. But I think that float idea is perfect. I hope someone in Chicago, New York, LA takes that idea up.
I just can't believe that like a library wouldn't financially back it. You know what I mean? Libraries famously flush with money, and we know this.
Yes.
We know
and
this.
Gays. Everyone who works in the library is gay.
We know this. And if not, very bi-curious energy. Very bi-curious energy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll let you go. Don't worry. I will record the sound of me knocking on my head so you can isolate that for your ringtone. And
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Colin, I'm going to we'll keep in touch and we'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Yay. Thank you so much. This was a blast.
Oh my God, you're the best. I'll talk to you soon.
Alrighty. Ciao.
Bye. Thank you again for listening. That was Colin Rourke. What a cutie patootie. Isn't he so sweet? Follow him on Twitter at Ballin_Rourke. I'm at Liam Garrow. Sign up for my pilot writing course. Starts September 30th. Got just under a month until class is underway. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the show. It means the world that people are continuing to listen. I really appreciate it. And let me know how you're dealing with anti-vax people in your life. I would love to hear your story and then read it on the show. That'd be really, really enlightening for me, and I think for other people to sort of hear how other people are handling it. Everyone get vaccinated, wear a mask, do the smart and thoughtful thing for yourself and for others. I don't know what else to say, but as per usual, thank you for listening. We will see you next week. Take care of yourselves. Have a lovely rest of your week. Bye-bye.